Uh-oh.
Okay.
My computer over here.
Oh, no. All right, so we are now live streaming, so we are set and ready. And just in case Ms. Turullo or Dr. Oladelli wasn't with us, Ms. Schuster's offered to step in as acting chair until Dr. Turner is able to join us. So
Great.
Yes, so
Thank you.
turn the meeting over to her.
great. Call to order communications subcommittee meeting, May 9th, 5:37.
All right. Okay.
So are we going to approval of the minutes, or because we don't have the packet officially?
Yeah, so I would suggest that we we table the approval of the minutes and move it to the next agenda, since we don't have them with a packet.
Okay.
And then the next item, which is item 3, public comment. We did not receive any public comment.
Right, so we have no written communication, and we have no public comment right now. So we'll move on to agenda item number 4, and we will discuss the BOE community forum planning that is set for May 22nd. That we already started getting questions, right?
Yes. So
I don't have those. Jenny has those.
Everybody should have them. If I can just give a quick update. So I should have, you should have received an email from me. And if you had provided me with also a Gmail address, I would have shared that as well. And it will be a link to a spreadsheet where we have collected the questions that have come in so far. If you haven't received that, after the meeting, let me know, or I can try to resend, or but there's certain, or if you forgot to send me your Gmail account, go ahead and do that. But you should see a spreadsheet somewhere in your emails from me that has the list of the questions. So it's a good start. I think one of the things, so I'm just trying to think of the community forum from sort of start to finish. I do believe it would be helpful for someone to write and read a statement regarding expectations before we start. Not perhaps unlike what we use for public comment. So if that is something that the communications committee would like to task somebody with. Jenny just told us that she may not be able to come, so I'm just going to tell her that's okay.
Unfortunately, I have a conflict on the 22nd. I just found out, so
okay.
I won't be able to attend.
Okay. So this is sort of my vision would be kind of that we would have, obviously our panelists are primarily administrators, although so far some of the questions that have come in, we've had a few related to AP and a few related to SRP. So I just kind of want to see how that kind of plays out, and to see if there's anybody else we would bring in addition to the kind of core admin team. Obviously, Mr. Davis has agreed, and I had talked to him about this. He will sit on the panel. By having just him on the panel, we actually don't have to make it a board meeting, so it can continue to be a public community forum. Okay. I think it would be helpful. Again, I think it's part of the communications committee and sort of the perception we're trying to create. It would be nice if we could kind of assign tasks, and if one member of the committee could read a statement, not unlike Mr. Davis's, regarding civility, not personally attacking members, maybe even a little bit. And I don't know, Amy, you sort of have been through these kind of meetings before. Donna and Carol, you probably have too, but like not dominating the conversation, not like
creating a space of openness and sharing.
Yes, like all of that good
guidelines.
Yep. So I think kind of that as a preface, and maybe using some of the language that I even put out in the communication to my first Swift K-12 about what the purpose of the forum is, just kind of establishing that. I think it will be helpful. And so if Amy and Carol, if you're both able to attend and Jenny is able to attend, I think we could sort of bifurcate the tasks during the meeting. So if two of you took the pre-populated questions, the ones that people are already sending in, and figured out the way to kind of ask those, I can set it up so that one person only gets the live questions that would come through the QR code, which I think would be easier for somebody to monitor if they would just have to have almost like an iPhone or a computer or iPad pulled up to a Google form. I have a whole separate set of questions connected to the QR code, and it would populate it live. So they could just pay attention to that, while in the other space, two of you could sort of be filtering and asking the questions we got in ahead of time. I think that would probably be the easiest way to do that. And my thought would have been so maybe, I know Donna, you can't be there. Maybe it's reaching out to another board member and seeing if they could be the one to kind of keep an eye on the crowd to see if there's sort of the hand raised and sort of the live question type of thing. I think that would create the most natural sort of pattern of flow. Because I do want to be conscientious to answer the questions that came in first, because thank you very much for taking the time to write us questions ahead of time. And we want to be able to answer those. I think being able to address what comes in live, you just need two people doing that, one to monitor the online platform and one to monitor the in-person kind of space.
So will Jenny be able to come on the 22nd?
I have to assume she probably will.
Okay.
I think so. I think we talked about it last night.
Okay.
We definitely talked about the meeting last night. I was under the impression she was planning on.
Okay. And Carol, are you going to be able to make it on the
Yeah.
22nd?
Yeah.
And Amy?
Yes.
So you have coverage. So you have three people. So someone's going to monitor someone's going to read the predetermined questions or pre-submitted questions, and then so do you have the technology, or how would you set up the technology to get additional questions from?
So it's already a separate Google form. It's connected to a QR code. What we'll do is we'll put out sort of like half sheets. We'll scatter them around sort of the seats and say, if you have an additional question you want to ask anonymously, scan the QR code, go ahead and type it in. It's a super simple Google form, doesn't track emails. You just type your question, hit submit. And if somebody literally has the Google spreadsheet that's connected to that form pulled up on their computer, they will see it bring in the questions.
So
With me. So if you want me to do that, I can.
So Amy, if you take the live Google questions.
Okay, so the live, Amy will take the live. And then.
So by default, that would kind of let Carol and Jenny take the predetermined or the sort of pre-populated questions.
pre-submitted
Yeah.
Pre-submitted
Okay.
questions. So how many do we have total to date? Are we going to do another push as a reminder?
Yep. So I'll do another push tomorrow. It'll just probably be a basic Swift K-12 push. And then next week, we'll do a little bit more through social media. The principals are putting it in their newsletters. So they did it last week. They'll do it again this Friday. They'll do it again next Friday. And yeah, so starting around next Wednesday, I'll get it up onto our Facebook site and onto the pop-up on the website.
Awesome.
So when is
And-
the last time they can submit questions?
It's the next Thursday,
Okay.
but so the last newsletter from the principals will be more just a reminder about it. We'll probably change the language a little bit and take out the link to submit the questions, but we'll still remind people of the forum.
And we're also going to remind them that during the forum, they can ask follow-up questions or submit questions through a QR code in person.
So again, I think that's all part of kind of that opening speech, whatever we decide to write, which again, I think comes a little bit from the letter that I sent to the families, a little bit from Paul's kind of public comment speech, and then kind of a little bit from this process. Donna, is that something you would mind taking on writing if you're not there that night? Could you sort of pull all those things together to write kind of something that one of us could read as an introduction?
Did you already have something pulled? Something we already used?
So it's the Swift Case message that I had shared with you guys that I sent out, I think gives kind of the tension behind it. I'm sure if you reached out to Paul, he could give you the language he uses around civility that he puts into his opening speech. And then I think what you just said, I think that, there are QR codes available to ask anonymous follow-up questions. And if we just, people can ask questions in person, we'll entertain in-person questions as well.
Jen, there's going to be off-topic questions. Are we going to entertain them or are we not entertaining them?
I think that's up to you guys. Certainly, there are some questions we already got from the pre-populated that are off topic and probably not appropriate for a community forum. So I think that should be perhaps part of the opening speech, that this is about academics, that those are the questions that we're going to be taking, that we will have a feedback survey that people can complete at the end, where they could give us other suggested topics. But I do think, and I think, and Carol and Amy, when you start to look at the pre-populated questions, I mean, there's some really good ones in there that are related to academics. So I think when you look at them, we want to read them as they are written. But when we read questions that are clearly, I mean, there's one about the budget. This is not a conversation about the budget. Yeah. So when we see those, I do think that we, it's a topic for another time. It is not the topic for this forum.
So Jen,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, we want to read them as they're written, but if there are like a couple similar questions, right? Like I just read it as like one question and making sure I hit all the points and across the three questions. But
so I think it would be helpful if, as we get closer to when that form is completed, if you and Amy sort of touch base and you look at that spreadsheet and say, these are the questions we're going to ask, and this is who's going to ask them.
Okay. Amy and I or Jenny?
You and Jenny, because that's right. Amy's doing the live questions.
Live questions. Okay. All right.
So Jen, when we are getting questions that are off topic, let's say the budget question, are we sending a response to them saying, thank you for your question? This form is okay.
No, because remember, it's anonymous. So I have absolutely no idea who submitted that question.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Okay. So maybe in part of the opening statement, we can say we did receive some questions around other topics, budget, whatever. And we're happy to set up in another forum. We'll have a feedback form at the end, suggestions, but for this forum, we're going to stay on topic of academics.
Yep, I think that's perfect, is acknowledging that they came in, that people will have a chance to submit ideas for other forums. But for this one, the questions we'll be addressing are those that are connected to academics.
Right, and just gentle reminders, we're going to stay on topic. If we happen to get questions that we're happy to discuss these another time, we're going to push them aside, take a list, and so we can meet again and discuss the next forum, a date and potential topics.
Yep.
And if they also feel a need to have their question answered immediately, they can email.
There's always a place to do that.
Right.
Is there somebody who would want to read the introduction that Donna's writing? Or since by default, since she's the chair and since Jenny's not here, do we assign it to her?
Yeah, I mean, Jenny and I let me not volunteer Jenny, but I'd be happy to if Jenny doesn't to read the introduction. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I
I
don't
think
care.
what I'll do is I'll write the opening statement, send it to everyone. And if they want to, suggestions, polish, however, not that we want too many cooks in the kitchen, but if they feel that something is a little amiss or could be said another way, then, I mean, when would you, well, we have till May 22nd, but I think maybe hashing it out this week, early next week.
Yep. And like I said, and Donna, if you need a copy of the I know I shared a copy of the letter a couple of times with you guys, but if you need it again, just let me know. And like I said, I think Paul has a statement that you can use some language from. And
Okay.
so then I think we dive into the questions we've had. Donna was good enough to send me some other questions that are just out there. So again, remember last time we talked, that was one of our tasks, was if everybody could create 4 questions just from stuff you hear in the community. It also helps us sort of structure some questions that we can kind of kick it off with. I do believe that if we start with the questions that really clearly show the forum is about academics, I think most people will fall in line and we won't get those rogue or random questions live.
Okay.
So if, so far your 2 homework tasks, or if you haven't sent me a Gmail address, please remember to do that. Then I can probably more easily share some of these documents. Oh God, I hate it when that thing does recognition.
Yeah.
The second is, put my thumb down. The second is that if you have like 4 questions that you've heard from other people that kind of on a consistent basis that you would think would be helpful for us to address, just shoot those to me. I'll put them in the forum as some of the initial questions to get us started. Because, you know, again, what we have so far, once you weed out what's not related to academics, it's, you know, it's not a ton of questions so far.
Okay.
So
I didn't send questions, but I will. But do you want us to enter them in the form?
No, shoot me an email.
Okay.
If you send me an email, I'll put them up separately so you know clearly which ones were the kind of the board pre-populated questions versus the ones that were actually submitted.
Okay. Okay.
So I do think we need probably one more board member helping us. And like I said, I have a feeling that there will be people who will actually just want to ask questions live, who don't have hesitation or fear, who will hear something and literally just by virtue of habit, raise their hand. So I think it would be helpful if there was a board member who was kind of monitoring the crowd and could kind of help moderate that. Especially if communications committee, you know, if Amy's looking for the live questions and Carol and Jenny are looking, you know, for the order of the questions they're going to ask next. So is there somebody that we would want to be able to do that? You know, Mr. Davis is up on the panel, so I don't know if we reach out to Pat as the vice chair to help with that, or if we reach out, you know, and again, I'm just trying to come up with logical solutions. I don't know if Pat is even planning on coming, but
I can later.
Okay.
When we're reach out to Pat and twist his arm a little bit.
Okay, that would be awesome. So Amy, I'm just tasking you to find some other board member who could do crowd monitoring.
What is the panel going to look like? So are Carol, Jenny, and I going to be like at the panel? Are we going to be in the audience?
I see you more kind of circulating sort of, so the vision, and I'm sorry, I'm going to air draw this, right? So there's going to be like sort of a semicircle of panelists. We're just going to sit in a chair, nothing between us, just sort of like in a chair. And then kind of like an audience, but sort of in a circular fashion behind that. So we still feel like one big circle, even though there's a panel area. I envision the communications committee members and Pat as kind of circulating through that audience area. Not hovering so much, but clearly standing up and sort of being the point of contact while our panel is able to answer the questions that you field to us. So that's a little bit of the vision. I want to make it comfy and sort of kind of homey feeling, but at the same time, we need to have enough room to accommodate an audience, and we do sort of have to have a set of panelists. So yeah.
Okay.
Unless somebody has a better idea.
Jen,
Oh, you're on mute.
I know, it's like, she can't hear me. Hi, Jenny. Do you want us to, will the panel decide amongst themselves who will take the question? Or, I mean, I guess Jenny and I will look at the questions ahead and think about the panel and who's the best person, or just let them sort of decide.
So my plan is I will shoot the questions out to the team who's going to serve on the panel ahead of time. We're not really, we won't really do this in a very formal manner. I mean, I'm thinking back to my COVID panels, and we would just kind of like, sort of look around in somewhat of a natural manner and be like, hey, Mrs. LaPlante, you want to take that one? It's about AP and you know the most about AP. Or, say to, I don't know if Miss Piscatelli's on, say, that's an SRP question. That one's definitely for you. So I think we'll kind of ad lib that part. I think for them to have the questions ahead of time, at least they know what they need to think about.
Yeah.
And I can make sure that there are certain people there who need to be, but I also, again, I want it to be more of a dialogue and to have it be very natural.
Okay.
So I think that's the way to structure it.
Thank you.
Again, unless you guys think we have a better plan, but I think that's how we roll with it.
Yeah, I do think that makes it more natural and more like a dialogue, if it's not like, okay, this is for you, Jen, because I know, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
So Jen, just to address the who and how do you want off topic? So I think it needs to come from one person, and I'm not sure if you want it to come from Jenny being the chair of communications, or if you want it to come from Paul.
So off topic is going to be questions that come in live, right? Because the pre-sent questions, Jenny and Carol will filter and will ask the ones about academics. So I think, Amy, if you're okay with it, as the person receiving the live questions, you're the one who says, that is a question for another forum, or that's a question that maybe you want to email the school administration about. That was the other thing I thought about too, Donna. I think in that opening sort of paragraph, we don't want parents to ask questions that are specific to their kids. This isn't a parent-teacher conference.
Yeah.
So somehow we want to kind of give that caution that, this is big picture. It's not about your child's personal experience right now trying to take an AP exam. You get what I'm saying? I'm right. I do worry a little bit about that part, and that's not the purpose of the forum. So that might be another caution, but yeah, I think Amy is the person who, as receiving the live questions, would regulate that as being perhaps off topic. The other person who might do that might be Mr. Reed, if he's kind of the live moderator, because if people are doing the raising hands, he might be the one who says, you know what, that's not the purpose of tonight's forum, but please. And I think it would be nice to have a statement that Amy and or Patrick could fall back on. That's not the purpose of tonight's forum. Thank you for the question. Please contact the school administration. And remember, we'll have a feedback form if this is a topic you would like us to discuss further.
All right, so just something simple that they can just read.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your question. We appreciate it. Tonight is
About academics.
forum academics. We'd like to stay in the academic realm.
Yep.
We're happy.
I'm on it.
Discuss.
Okay.
So,
Thanks.
Amy, do you want to write that, Amy? I mean, do you have some? I mean, if you're good.
Not the time or place, but we'll say, I'll write it nice and professionally. I know there's going to be some people who have already been rumbling about coming to the forum. And I know full well that their purpose for coming to the forum is discussing DEI. So that's going to be a problem. And I think Michelle Tenney might have alluded yesterday that she also intends on coming to the forum. So, and I think, you know, she's going to want to ask a question.
Okay, so let's disaster plan.
So that was my question. Do you all want, unlike a board meeting, we can remove people. And so my question is, do you want there to be school security so that if somebody is being disruptive and uncivil and not respectful of the situation that we've structured for a civil dialogue, that we could have security ask them to leave?
Well, I want everyone to feel safe and feel that they can ask a question and not feel as if they are at risk. And I have had people tell me that they don't go to board meetings because they don't feel safe. And so they were at earlier board meetings. I mean, last night, of course, was very civil and tame compared to some of our board meetings. And I don't want to be the person to say we should have security, but I don't think we can ignore if someone doesn't feel safe.
I mean, I don't have to ask for Woodbridge Police. We could probably hire or, you know, bring on some of our own school security officers. You know, I think the first, I do think the first line of defense is kind of the preface that we do at the beginning, that it's about being civil. I think our second line of defense is what Amy's going to write up, because again, we've talked about DEI as a possible forum. This is not the forum for that, but it's certainly one that we entertained and thought was, and I know I brought up SEL as a forum topic possibly. So we already have had these conversations about other things that we can talk about, but they're just very, the point of this one is academics. And so I do think though, if somebody gets disruptive, I think that that we would just, have our security ask them politely to leave and escort them out. I am most concerned about this, and to Donna's point, having the exact opposite effect of what we're hoping to achieve, that it ends up as a shouting match between two diametrically opposed sides, and that we lose control over the civility and honestly answering people's legitimate questions about their kids' academics.
I agree with you. I don't think having security there is necessarily a bad idea.
Okay. So I will definitely make arrangements for that.
It also sets the tone that this, we're serious about keeping civility and safety for everyone who is there.
And I do think that we probably would need somebody, because this is one of the challenges I know we faced at board meetings before, right? When we really wanted a person removed, somebody needs to direct somebody to do that. So I don't know if, again, that falls to sort of Amy and Pat as the moderators of the live portion of the meeting. I don't think it should fall to the panelists necessarily. Because again, we're trying to maintain the civility, but I think there should be at least one or no more than two people who can then say to the security guy who's going to be wearing a blue shirt with big yellow security on the back to say, I need you to ask that person to leave. And if they don't, to tell them that we are going to call Woodbridge Police.
I think it's also, go ahead, Amy. I was gonna say,
I would hope it doesn't.
yeah,
get
I mean,
to-
hopefully we don't have to do that, but you know, having the right sort of words in the intro to let them know, your questions are important. We value them. This is the first of many. If you submitted a question, it may be one that will be, the topic of like another forum. But I think it might be good for us to decide, like, at what point do we tap security? So is it, we reiterate what, the words that will be in the like preface for the session, and if there's no response, right, thank you again, we understand, important question, value your question. This one is focused on, academics, and then like,
So sort of
and
like
also security knows too, like, that's the
Yeah.
third time I'm gonna
like
ask you.
lob a warning, and then if somebody persists, then kind of, I don't know if you want to lob another warning.
Well, like,
I
it could be hostile, right? If it appears as if it's moving into a hostile kind of takeover, I think it'll be very apparent, just like we were talking about those definitions last night. I think it'll be very apparent if somebody needs to be removed.
Yeah.
You were not
Yeah.
going to kick everybody out if they go off topic. We're looking to have a civil discussion. And if somebody is being argumentative or combative and isn't willing to not be combative and argumentative, then they'll be asked to leave. I think it'll be quite apparent.
So perhaps perhaps there's a soft warning one and a second warning that's more direct, that says, if you continue down this path or down this line of questioning or down this tone or use this language, we are going to ask you to leave.
Right.
Or even being
And
disruptive.
ask them if they have an academic question,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Do you have
That's a good idea. Yeah.
You have an academic question.
Yeah.
We can, we'll take this question for under consideration for our next forum. Thank you. It's a very important question. We, of course, would like to address concerns for a majority of our community. And if you have an academic question, please ask that, or however you want to word it. And if they continue down that line, and you say, well, once again, I'd just like to remind you that this is about academics. And if it gets heated, it's the nice, gentle warning and say, okay, we're going to move on to the next question. Thank you for your time, and move on. And then if it becomes something else, then it's a tap on the shoulder to security.
I believe that somebody is going to say something like, it's about academics and DEI is being taught at Amity, which makes it academic. I know someone's going to say that.
Yeah, I agree that they are.
Right. So I guess, how do we
And I don't think there's actually a problem with saying that we're teaching DEI. As a matter of fact, the board has a core values statement we've adopted that says that. It's when they, like, why are we ashamed of being a diverse, equitable, and inclusive place? It's when they say the stuff about CRT, or
Correct.
It's accusations that we purposefully turn kids into transgender individuals. Right. Those are the ones and again, all we can say is we don't do that, but I don't know that they'll accept that as a response, because we've provided that response before, that we do not do this, and yet they still believe that. Yes.
Right. And then
So,
you agree to disagree, and we move on, and from that point. But to what you're saying, Jen, of course, DEI is about being inclusive and welcoming, and it's about belonging. And we all want to belong and feel safe when we go to school. So
I
if
do-
you are calling this DEI, then yes.
Yeah, I mean, and I have no problem embracing that. I doubt Mr. Davis will have a problem embracing that as board chair. So, I think we will be able to address that question. Again, it's really, it's more accusations of things that we know we just do not do, that they don't accept. No, we don't do that as that people don't accept. We don't do that as an answer. And again, I do think a lot of the tenor of the meeting can be set from the outset of Jenny and Carol asking the questions that were submitted that are really legitimate, good questions around academics. And I think some of the questions that Donna submitted are great ways to start. I'm sure that between Amy, Jenny, and Carol, you guys know some academic questions that we can just get started on that will really set, this is what the purpose of this forum is about. And I'm going to hope for the best, even though I do think planning for the worst is appropriate given what we've experienced for the past 2.5 years.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I decided not to plan.
Yeah. Yes. I do think, and it sounds like, you would have no problem and Paul would have no problem answering, but how DEI is connected to curriculum and academics, right? At Amity, like what the connection, and I don't know if this is, tell me if this is off topic, but what is the curriculum like how are we centering DEI in within the district? And
you want to know what's fascinating is all the questions we've had that came in so far have nothing to do with it. Nobody's asked a thing about it.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, I mean, most people won't, but there may be I didn't think about someone connecting DEI to academics. So Amy just said what she said. I was like, oh, well, I guess. But just to say that, I think we have to a panel at least has to be prepared to answer that or a similar some question like it.
I think we can, and I think we address it, and then we end with this again. We're going to entertain other topics. We know that this is one that our community feels very strongly about in many different ways. That may be a possible topic we do for a future meeting, and then kind of move on from a total focus on that. Will they be satisfied? Probably not. But again, if we kind of circle right back around to questions about AP and SRP and why aren't we teaching more kids computer education classes and kind of these good academic questions, then okay.
Yeah. Science research program.
Let's say that again. Science research. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right. So then kind of sort of a wrap up. I think we would, we want to try to be respectful of time, limit this to 2 hours. So at sort of the 8:15 mark, maybe kind of say, we're approaching the last 15 minutes. Are there any last questions that people have? And then, like I said, I'm going to have these half sheets with the QR code to send questions in. I will have a different colored half sheet scattered around that goes to a very simple feedback form. And I think the feedback form kind of just asks, did you feel, I think I sent it to you guys, but I don't know if you saw it. Again, I shared it in Google, but it was did you feel welcome here? Did you like the format? What other topics do you want to hear about? Did you feel comfortable? So it gets a little more at the affect of the overall meeting. But it's not more than 5 or 6 questions, because again, I want people to complete it as opposed to being oh, it's too long, I'm not going to say anything.
Right.
So
I saw that form, Jen, and I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it.
Awesome.
Yeah. And just long enough. And yeah.
Right. And just remind people to provide feedback, because we would like to get their feedback. It's valuable.
Yeah.
Did you say we'll have a QR code for this, as people are exiting?
Yes. So
okay.
I'm picturing, we're going to say use the yellow sheet to ask questions live during the meeting, use the blue sheet to provide feedback at the end, and they'll all just have, it's just a simple sort of it's a half sheet. It says, scan this, it's got the big giant QR code, and then it tells you what it's for. So again, sort of in that circle, I just picture copies of these cards kind of scattered all over the place so that people can just ask their neighbor, hey, can I have one? Or, you know, do you mind? And then we'll probably have some posted on the doors as they exit the library. So on the way out, again, they can scan.
How do we ensure that, or what would you like us to do if, we said that folks can ask follow-up questions, but what if someone sort of trying to dominate the space, right? Like they have, I don't know, 3 or 4 follow-up questions. Yeah, I guess, what do we want to do?
I think we want to maybe explain, and again, it may be part of Donna's introduction, that the order of operations is we're going to address the questions that were submitted prior to the meeting first, because people took the time to submit those questions, and follow-up questions that are related to those topics will be entertained. And then if once we get through all the pre-submitted questions and any follow-ups related to them, there's time for additional questions, we will address them at that point. And, you know, and that would be kind of Amy moderating those, if they're coming in live anonymously, just they'll have a timestamp. She'll be able to see what comes in when. And then it would fall, you know, and then a little bit on Pat if people are, you know, raising their hand live. But I think as long as we set the expectations that the questions that were submitted ahead of time will be answered first, and you know, and that we'll try to balance those questions with follow-ups related to that topic. But then if somebody has like, you know, 9 follow-up, you may, and yet Carol and Jenny, you still have 6 more questions that were pre-submitted, you may say, you know, we're going to move on to our pre-submitted questions or move back to our pre-submitted questions. But if there's time at the end, we again will open up an open forum. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, so we'll put it in the opening statement and maybe their questions will be answered.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we could, I mean, you know what, do you have a sense of how long it would take to answer the pre-submitted questions?
As of right now, not terribly long, but we don't have a whole lot. You know, I think once we combine those with maybe some that as communication committees members you add to, and again, it's still relatively new and was sort of far off. So we'll see what happens after I send a couple more push notifications out to people. But for right now, you know, there were, I don't know, 30 some odd questions, and at least 6 of them have nothing to do with the topic of academics. And then of those that were left, a lot of them kind of, you know, they overlap a handful of topics. So it's not, ultimately, it's ultra complex as of right now.
Okay.
Are there going to be refreshments?
No, we talked about that. And as warm and cozy as we want it to be, 2 reasons. We don't allow food and drink in the library media center. So that's kind of like the big reason. But the second piece is, you know, I think it's also, it's just kind of like weird when somebody's like sitting next to you, like noshing on like chips or something. So like, let's just like make it a community forum as warm and welcoming as cookies are. Like, no, it's really more that you're not supposed to have stuff in the media center. But if that's the feedback people give us, then okay, then we'll think about something else. That's right. That may happen.
If we get that feedback, then maybe we can think about like sometime outside and people can show up 10 minutes before, but no.
Honestly, if that was the feedback we got, it would have been, I would have considered the entire night a success. Like if the failure that we did was we didn't provide cookies and water, I'm okay with that.
You're like, sure. We'll see. I'm hopeful that it will be good and civil and people will appreciate this opportunity to just like have dialogue with members of our like administration, staff, and board members.
I think another piece, and again, I haven't really communicated this. I'm not even quite sure how, although it certainly comes through in the feedback form. This really is intended for people with kids in our schools, right? This is not a public comment session of the board. It is a community forum, but it's really, it's about what's happening to our children right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no way to control for that, but it's not intended to just open it up to anybody who had experiences for their own students 20 years ago, because it's not what we're reflective of at this point in life.
Right.
So, and again, because everything's anonymous, there's no way to control it, but emphasizing that that's part of the intention is about the lived experiences of students and parents right now. That's what we really want. So what are other thoughts or ideas? What I will try to do actually as a result of this meeting is kind of summarize the whole process. And I'll probably send it to you guys first, so you can give me feedback or think about anything else we're missing. And then maybe middle of next week, I'll send it to the entire board, so anybody who else who plans to attend knows what to expect. Because I know like I know I spoke to some board members who were like, oh my God, we're gonna have to sit up on the panel and answer questions. I'm like, no, you don't have to do that. That's okay. It'll be great if you're in the audience. Other thing I thought about doing, and I'll probably reach out to Sam and Marin to do this, but I think I would actually like to put it in the student happenings. So that way our kids, if they want to attend, would be able to attend and submit questions and ask those as well. Because I think, again, it's a community forum, and at this point, it's perfectly appropriate that our students ask questions if they want to.
Yeah. I don't think this will be a problem, but what happens if we have more people show up, then we can sort of host.
I mean, we can always sort of have the Brady Center as a backup where we could move it there. It won't have that same homey feeling, but I'll probably we could easily have the panelist chairs set up kind of down on the lower level. And if we encourage people to fill in sort of that middle section in the front, we would be able to create that same sort of sense of theater in the round, so to speak. So yeah, I'll see how many people I can actually manage to accommodate. But I'm not envisioning anything worse than our worst board meetings, and we can easily fit that number of people into the Library Media Center.
Okay.
Other stressors, worries, questions, thoughts, ideas?
I just need to find the media center, but I can do that between now and
very important. You should know where that is.
I can show you, Carol. We can meet up.
Okay.
All right. So to do a quick recap of everything that we've done, and again, this isn't in any particular order, but Amy, you are going to monitor the live questions that come in through Google, and maybe we'll test it out. We'll test my form and make sure everything is set up. You and I can just work on that at some point next week. Carol and Jenny, you will do the pre-submitted questions. Make sure that you have access to the spreadsheet where they all are. And if you two have a chance to just kind of meet and say, all right, these are the questions we're going to ask. These are the ones that are redundant. These are the ones that have totally nothing to do with the topic that we're focusing on. You'll have your set of questions. Collectively, as a communications group, with the exception of Donna, if everybody could submit 4 other possible questions, we can also put those into the spreadsheet to really kind of keep the focus on academics, just based on things that you've heard in the community. Donna is going to tackle the job of writing the introduction. which has a lot of different parts to it as we've had this conversation. And then Jenny, because you were driving and weren't here, we assigned it to you to read. No, mostly communications chair. But if you're really uncomfortable doing that, or you can't come, Carol will do that.
No, that's totally fine.
Awesome. And then Amy, you're going to talk to Pat, and if not him, some other Board of Ed member who can moderate the live questions.
Yeah, Pat was calling me back now, so I'm looking forward to meeting, talking to him.
He's going to be thrilled. Don't tell him this.
Oh yeah, he's going to be super happy with it.
I will arrange for there to be a security person there. And I think and we all agreed having 1 to 2 warning statements would be helpful in sort of our back pocket. So I don't know if that's something that you all collectively want to write, or if that's something, again, Amy and Pat are the ones who are more than likely going to have to issue the warning statements, because you're taking the live questions as opposed to those pre-populated ones.
Right. I think redirecting will be easy for both Amy and Patrick.
I imagine.
Yeah, as teachers, and I feel like whatever they say should be something that's natural to them. So.
Yep. And then I will summarize everything. I'll send it to all of you so that you can see what we have, and then I'll send it to the board members. As far as communications, I'll send out another Swift K-12 this week. Principals will send out another in their weekly this week and next week. And then starting probably early next week, we'll put it on to the Facebook page and put it on as a pop-up on the website.
And Twitter?
I don't know if we actually have a lot of Twitter handles. Yeah, I think those kind of died. But we'll definitely have it on our Facebook site. Oh, and I'll put it into student happenings through the student gov. So our kids will be in there too.
Oh, kids should be able to ask questions too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so Jenny, I'm going to send the statement to the entire committee, but it's basically outlining the meeting, how it's going to run, and civility, the duration, and how to submit their questions for submitting them in person, and if they wanted to raise their hand. And Amy will, of course, will be moderating that, like Jen said. But it's just a statement about how we're going to run
the explanation. Yeah.
The explanation. This is the first form of many. We hope to gather more topics. And I guess
thanks, Donna. I appreciate that work.
Yeah,
you're welcome. And feel free to amend any way you want.
All right.
Do we have other topics on our agenda tonight?
Oh,
not particularly. So, like I said, the item about communications, I am still drafting, so I don't have anything to share. But it'll essentially capture what happened at last night's meeting. And then, oh, sorry, I just got a text that Senator Murphy would like to come to Amity. Awesome. Great.
Tell him to come for our forum. Or actually, no.
On Friday, because, we don't need any sort of stuff, but. So that's kind of it for this meeting. And then I will go and move on to apparently what I'm planning.
All right.
Next.
Yep.
Well, happy Senator wrangling.
So, so if the acting chair would like to, with no objections, adjourn the meeting, we absolutely can do that.
Yes. And if there are no objections, let's adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Ellen. I'm so sorry to be late.
That's okay.
All right. It was
Thanks,
unavoidable.
everyone.